You were sitting on the couch casually flipping through a magazine while waiting for your husband to come back home. But then something unusual happened. Jungkook slammed the door so hard that it shook the entire house. You jumped at the sound, immediately sensing something was very wrong. Your heart pounded as you stood up from the couch, watching him march towards you with fire in his eyes. His expression was dark, angry, but also hurt. He looked like someone who had just discovered something terrible. You were so confused and eager to know what happened. Jungkook, you called softly trying to reach him, but he didn't stop. Without saying a word, he threw an envelope onto the coffee table between you. You stared at it, confused, until you noticed what it was: divorce papers. Your eyes widened in shock and disbelief before you looked at him again. Jungkook, what's going on? You whispered while your hands trembled as you reached for the envelope, not believing in your eyes. What's going on? He repeated the sentence. His voice was full of bitterness. His eyes were hard, full of emotions he was barely holding back. You're really going to ask me that? You had no idea where this was coming from. Why would he bring divorce papers? And this was the very first time he came home in such anger. Your heart was pounding. I never thought you would do this to me. After everything we have been through. Jungkook finally spoke. His voice was laced with disappointment and hurt. You blinked, still trying to process what he was saying. What do you mean? What's going on? You whispered, terrified of what he was about to tell you. Finally, he reached into his pocket and pulled out something crumpled, a letter. Your heart stopped, one of the love letters you had written to your ex in the early days of your marriage. Your head spun, panic set in. He wasn't supposed to find that. You had written it before you fell for him, back when everything between you two felt so cold, so distant. Jungkook threw the letter onto the table. His chest was heaving and his voice cracked with hurt. I found this, your little love letter to him. You froze in guilt and shame as you realized what this looked like. Jungkook, I can explain. Explain? He snapped, stepping back from you like he couldn't bear to be close. Explain what? That you never wanted this marriage? That you have been thinking about someone else all this time? Tears filled in your eyes as you stood up. You took a step towards him, but he held up his hand, stopping you. Jungkook, please, you don't understand. That letter, it was from before, from when I didn't know how to deal with everything back then. Our marriage, it was hard at first. He shook his head, his eyes were filled with betrayal. At first, and what about now? Are you still thinking about him? Are you still wishing you were with him? No, you cried, shaking your head. No, Jungkook, it's not like that anymore. I swear it's not. That letter is old. I haven't thought about him in so long. I don't at all. Jungkook's voice cracked as he laughed bitterly. Old? That doesn't make it hurt any less. Do you know what it felt like to read that? To see the words you wrote, pouring your heart out to someone else? Your heart started beating fast, as if you're about to lose something very special. I know it looks bad, but I stopped writing those letters a long time ago. Back then, I didn't know you. I didn't know how much you cared about me. Jungkook's hands balled into fists as he turned away, trying to keep his emotions in check. So what? You were just going through the motion with me while you were still in love with him? You rushed towards him, grabbing his arm. No, I wasn't in love with him anymore. I was confused. I felt trapped, like I had no choice. My parents forced me into this marriage. I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know you. He pulled his arm away, stepping back as if your touch burned him. And now, what am I supposed to believe now? After reading that, how am I supposed to trust you? How do I know you still want this marriage or just pretending? You shook your head, trying to come closer to him, but as if he doesn't want your presence near you. Trust me, Jungkook. Please listen to me. That was in the past. I haven't thought about him in so long because I've fallen in love with you. It wasn't easy at first. But you changed everything for me. Your tears were streaming down to your cheeks while his eyes were red with anger and hurt. How am I supposed to believe that? Because it's true. In the beginning, yes, I struggled. I didn't know how to deal with this marriage, but you were so patient with me. You tried so hard to make me happy even when I pushed you away. Jungkook's eyes were still full of pain. I did everything I could to make this work because I loved you. But all the while, you were writing letters to him. His voice was reflecting the pain he was enduring right now. You quickly wiped away your tears because you wanted to explain to him everything honestly. I stopped writing to him when I realized how much you cared for me, when I saw all the little things you did, bringing me my favorite coffee, making sure I was comfortable, giving me space when I needed it. You didn't push me, you didn't force me. You let me come to you in my own time. He stood there breathing heavily, his face was conflicted. Why didn't you just tell me? Why didn't you say something instead of hiding it? I was scared that if I told you, you would hate me, that you would never forgive me, but I swear Jungkook, I don't think about him anymore. He's married now with someone else, and I don't want to go back to that. I want to be with you. You are the one I love. He scoffed. Oh, so now I understand. You gave up because he moved on. You decided to move on and love me back because the one you love already settled. I loved you since the first day. I knew it must be hard for you to accept this marriage, and that's why I waited. I waited until you start seeing my efforts to love me back. But I never knew you were writing those letters to him, and I was hoping I'll get your love. You shook your head. There was no use of wiping your tears because they were not ready to stop. That's not true, Jungkook. Believe me, I love you. I know this was a huge mistake. I shouldn't have kept these letters with me. I never wanted to hurt you, Jungkook. I have seen how much effort you have put into this marriage. You have given me everything. I didn't deserve it, but you still gave it. His face softened for just a moment, but then he glanced at the letter again. But you kept that letter. You kept it all this time. Why? I don't know. Maybe a part of me was still holding on to the past, afraid to let go. Because now I realized how foolish that was. You are my present. You are my future. That's all that matters. Guilt was filling you up. Jungkook let out a shaky breath. His anger was slowly giving way to the deep hurt he was feeling. Do you really love me? Or am I just a consolation prize because you couldn't be with him? You shook your head quickly. Your heart was breaking at the thought that he might not believe you. No, Jungkook, you're not second best. You are the one I chose, and I'll keep choosing you every day. I fell in love with you because of who you are, because of your kindness, your patience, the way you care for me. He stared at you for a long moment. His eyes were filled with uncertainty. How can I trust you now? How can you expect me to trust you when I saw this letter and it was written after you married to me? I can't believe this. You stepped closer to him while your voice was pleading. Give me a chance. Let me prove it to you. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust again. I made mistakes, but I don't want to lose you. I love you, Jungkook. Please don't give up on us. You swallowed. You could see he was fighting with his inner thoughts, but the betrayal, the wound was so deep he could barely think of anything positive now. He took a step back from you. I wish I could say I trust you. I wish you have told me about this instead of hiding it. That would be less painful and I could think properly. But I just can't forget the word you wrote to him. I have never felt so broken before. I wish I didn't come in your life. Saying that, he left in the room, slamming the door shut loudly. Your knees weakened. You could feel your world falling apart, but you were not ready to give up. Not until you will prove him that you truly love him. That it was in the past, but now he's your everything. Your eyes fell to the divorce papers on the table. They were real. They were signed. The sight of his signature, written in anger and pain, sent a wave of nausea through you. It felt like the ground beneath your feet was crumbling. But you weren't ready to let him go. Not like this. You couldn't lose him, especially not when you had finally realized how much he meant to you, how much you loved him. With tears streaming down your face, you rushed towards his room, your heart pounding in your chest. You didn't care how broken you felt or how impossible it seemed. You needed to make him understand. You couldn't bear the thought of him walking away, of him believing that you didn't love him, because you did. With every fiber of your being, you loved him and you needed him to know that. When you reached his bedroom door, you heard the lock click, closing you out. You knocked and your voice was shaking, desperate. Jungkook, please open the door. Let me explain everything, please. I'm begging you. There was no answer. You could hear the silence on the other side, his silence, the silence that hurt more than any word he could have said. You pressed your forehead against the door, your palm flat against the wood as you cried. Jungkook, I know I hurt you. I know I messed up, but please don't shut me out. Please talk to me. I love you. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. You don't have to forgive me right now. Just let me explain, please. Still, there was no response, only the heavy stillness that seemed to grow thicker the longer you stood there. You slid down to the floor, sitting just outside his door, your back pressed against it. You wiped your tears, but more kept coming. I don't care how long it takes. I'll stay here until you believe me, until you understand how sorry I am, how much you mean to me. You have been nothing but good to me, and You swallowed hard, trying to hold back a sob. I was scared, I was confused, I never wanted this marriage. I was in love. I begged my father to not get me married to someone I don't love, but he didn't listen. No doubt you were so kind and understanding. I was immature to do such stupidity. I know I shouldn't have done this, but that's no excuse. I love you, Jungkook, and I can't lose you, please. Minutes passed, then hours. You sat there curled up outside his door. Your body was trembling from exhaustion and the overwhelming emotion that surged through you. You tried to stay awake, to keep talking, but your energy was fading. The weight of everything crashed down on you until eventually you dozed off. Jungkook was standing inside his room, leaning against the wall, staring at the door. He had heard every word you said, every desperate plea, but his heart was too heavy with the betrayal, too overwhelmed by the pain of discovering the letters. He had wanted to trust you. He had tried, giving his all to this marriage, loving you even when he felt like you didn't love him back. He didn't know how to process it. His mind was torn between the love he still felt and the heartbreak that consumed him. As the hour passed and the silence stretched on, something inside him shifted. The thought of you sitting outside the door, crying for him, began to wear him down. It wasn't that he wanted to forgive you so easily. He couldn't, but seeing you broken, knowing you were hurting too, made his own pain twist even stronger. After what felt like forever, he opened the door slowly. His heart ached as he looked down at you. You were asleep, your body was slumped against the wall, your eyes were red and puffy from crying, your face was still damp with tears. The sight of you like this made his chest tighten, guilt mixing with his anger. No matter how much he hurt, seeing you like this was unbearable. He knelt down beside you. His fingers brushed your hair out of your face gently. For a moment he just watched you sleep, conflicted by everything that had happened. He hesitated, but then he reached out to touch your shoulder. "Wyan," he whispered as his voice was softer than usual. You stared, blinking your eyes open. The moment you saw him, you sat up quickly. Your heart was racing as you remembered everything that had happened. You were still outside the door. He hadn't let you in. "Jungkook, He cut you off while his voice was heavy. "Come inside." He helped you to your feet, and though his touch was gentle, the pain in his eyes was clear. You followed him into the room, standing there awkwardly as he closed the door behind you. The silence felt thick, filled with all the unspoken words between you. You couldn't bear it anymore, the weight of your guilt suffocating you. "Jungkook." You softly called his name, but it was clear you were on the verge of breaking down. Jungkook took a deep breath. He wanted to talk about it. It was true that he was hurt, but not clearing things won't do any good to both of you, especially when it was a thing of the past. "I understand that marriage was out of convenience. I understand you were not in love with me, but I tried that time. I thought you were trying to, and after 2 years, when I saw these letters in your closet hiding as if They are your most precious memories. I couldn't help but to break down. You tried to control your sobs and came near him. I know I made a mistake and I'm ready to apologize until you forgive me, but please believe me. I love you. Those letters mean nothing to me. Jungkook came near you. The anger and hurt was still in his eyes. Then why didn't you throw those letters away, Ryan? If they meant nothing, if I'm the one you love now, why did you keep them? Why did you hide them like they were something precious? His words were sharp, cutting through the silence. You could see the pain etched across his face, and it tore you apart inside. You swallowed hard, trying to gather your thoughts to make him understand. I didn't even think about them. I was stupid, Jungkook. I didn't throw them away because I never looked at them again after those first months. They were shoved in the back of the closet, forgotten, and I didn't realize they were still there. I wasn't holding on to them because of him, I swear. I didn't even remember they were there. Jungkook shook his head, clearly struggling to believe your words. You didn't think? How could you not think about something like that? We have been married for 2 years, Ryan. 2 years, and you never thought to get rid of the letters you wrote to another man? Do you know how that makes me feel? Like you were never really here. Like you were still living in the past. Tears filled in your eyes as you took a hesitant step forward, desperate to make him understand. I know I messed up, but I wasn't living in the past, not after I realized what I had right in front of me. I was blind in the beginning, Jungkook. I'll admit that. I wasn't ready for this marriage. I didn't know how to feel, but once I saw how much you cared, once I saw everything you did for me, I stopped thinking about him. I stopped writing those letters because I didn't need them anymore. He let out a bitter laugh. The sound was filled with pain, but you kept them. You kept those damn letters, Ryan. Do you know what it was like to find them? To read the words you wrote to him? Even after you married me, I thought we were building something real. I thought you were finally trying with me. But all this time you had those letters hidden away like a part of your heart was still with him. You shook your head, tears were streaming down your face. No, that's not true, Jungkook. My heart isn't with him. I kept those letters because I was stupid, because I wasn't thinking. I didn't throw them away, but that doesn't mean I didn't love you. I fell in love with you and I hate myself for not showing you sooner. Jungkook's eyes softened for a brief moment, but the hurt was still there, raw and deep. How can I believe that? How can I trust you after this? You stepped closer and reached out to him. Your hands were trembling. Because I'm telling you the truth now. I love you, Jungkook. I didn't know it at first, but I love you, and I've loved you for a long time. Those letters, they are nothing to me. I was foolish for not throwing them away, but they don't mean anything anymore. He looked down, his shoulders were tensed as he tried to process your words. It just doesn't make sense to me, Ryan. If you loved me, why didn't you get rid of them? Why did you hide them? I wasn't hiding them. You said softly, your voice was barely above a whisper. They were buried in the closet because I didn't care about them anymore. I didn't think about them because I was thinking about you, about us. I was thinking about how much I wanted to make this marriage work. I didn't realize those letters were still there until you found them. He let out a shaky breath and sat on the bed before rubbing his face. The sight of him was so vulnerable that you started hating yourself. I don't know. When I read that letter, I was angry, jealous. You have no idea what I went through just by reading them. You sat beside him, putting his hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry, Jungkook, but believe me, there's no one in my heart except you. I'm sorry for everything, but I really love you and only you. He slowly lifted his face. Ryan, I don't know how to just move past this. I don't know how to forget the pain, the betrayal I felt when I saw those letters, but the truth is, I can't deny what I feel for you. I've always loved you from the moment we got married, even when I knew it wasn't the same for you. Your heart broke at his words. Seeing him like this, so vulnerable and hurt because of something you never meant to do, was unbearable. You wiped at the tears falling freely from your eyes and reached for his hand, hoping he wouldn't pull away. I know I've hurt you. I was so lost in the beginning. I didn't realize what I had in front of me. But I swear, Jungkook, I stopped thinking about the past the moment I saw how much you loved me. I didn't want to go back. I didn't care about anyone else but you. I was stupid for not throwing those letters away, but I didn't even look at them. They don't mean anything anymore. Jungkook's hand trembled slightly in yours. He didn't pull away, but you could feel the weight of his struggle. It's not just about the letters, Ryan. It's about the fact that you didn't tell me, that you kept this part of your past hidden. Even when we were building something real, it makes me wonder if I was enough for you, if I've ever been enough. You were enough, more than enough. You have always been everything I needed. I just didn't see it at first, but I see it now. I love you, Jungkook, and I'll do anything to prove it to you. Please don't doubt that. Don't doubt what we have. Jungkook took a deep breath, his eyes searching yours like he was looking for answers. You could see he was struggling inside, wanting to forgive you but also feeling the pain from what happened. When he spoke, his voice was quieter but still full of emotion. I want to believe you. I want to believe that we can move forward, that we can be okay, but trust doesn't come back just like that, Ryan. It's going to take time. You nodded, knowing how much you had hurt him. You knew you couldn't expect things to get better overnight, but you were willing to do whatever it took to fix things. I know, Jungkook. I'll give you all the time you need. I'll show you every day that I love you and only you. I don't want to lose you. I can't lose you. Jungkook looked at you for a long moment. His thumb gently brushed over the back of your hand. His touch, even after all that happened, gave you a small bit of hope. It wasn't over yet. We'll take it one step at a time, but I'm not giving up on us. Ryan, not now, not never. Your heart felt full when he said that. Tears came to your eyes again, but this time they weren't from sadness. They were tears of hope. You hugged him tightly. Thank you, Jungkook. Thank you for giving me another chance. I promise I'll never let you down again. Jungkook held you close, his arms strong around you, and he rested his head on top of yours. His warmth made you feel safe, reminding you that there was still love between you, strong love that could survive even the hardest times. We'll be okay, we just need time. You pulled back a little, looking up at him with watery eyes, but now with a small smile. As long as we are together, I'll wait as long as it takes. Jungkook gave you a small, tired smile, wiping the tears from your cheek. Even though there was still pain between you, you both knew the love you shared was real. We'll figure this out together. You nodded, leaning into his hand, feeling lighter. The road ahead might still be tough, but with Jungkook by your side, you felt like you could face anything. Together, you knew you could rebuild the trust and love you had, and make a future that was strong and unbreakable.